Hey, what is up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I am bringing you another buyer's guide, this time covering the last of the 3 brand new cars bought to us in Gran Turismo 7's update 1.19. This is obviously a classic Maserati, and it kind of slipped under the radar. Yes, it looks good, but I feel like it wasn't a very popular choice, and nobody would have chosen this to be in the game really, obviously alongside stuff like the 918 Spyder and the super silhouette Skyline that we have. It's kind of an oddball really, but it seems to kind of go with how Gran Turismo 7 updates the game. Obviously we have a modern, a kind of race car, and then a classic. Obviously, if you want to buy this for yourself, it's 2.9 million. This is obviously the Maserati A6GCS 53 Spyder 1954, popping out a whopping 166 brake horsepower. But trust me, don't let that turn you away from this car. You're going to have heaps of fun in it. So I just thought I'd get a kind of taste for it really, and yeah, this happened. It turns out that this is actually one of the most fun cars to just drive around and have fun with in the game. It's actually very controllable just to have that back end hanging out through all the corners. So yeah, expect a lot of that while you're driving it. But let's get onto the actual lap itself. So I know this thing's tail happy. I know it's going to be, low grip, big skinny, skinny tires. Obviously not big tires. Classic race car feel. And yeah, pleasantly surprised. So, short shifting ain't going to work on this car. So what was my plan of action going into this lap to get the, I guess, fastest lap possible that I could with this car? Now, my main kind of thought of going into it is this thing only has 4 gears, so how am I going to do it? Just sort of not short shifting, keeping the gear ratios, kind of gear changes down, and sort of going into the corners in, I guess I'd say, a bit higher than the game kind of suggests. Sometimes it wants you to go into first gear. You won't need that much. I find the best gears for sort of slower to medium corners is second, and obviously the faster, the 3 and 4 are definitely there for the I guess faster corners. So long gear ratios in this thing, and it's rather kind of easy to get used to it. Obviously less gears means there's less time kind of messing about getting down the gears or getting up the gears. So very easy to memorize and kind of get used to how you need to drive this thing. And I would 100% recommend just going a gear above what you think you should really be in to kind of keep the grip there. You will see a few times throughout this lap this thing is going to swing its back end right out. It's kind of hard to avoid. The standard tires it actually gets put on, I believe, are Comfort Softs, and they're a terrible choice of tire for any car. You want to avoid them as much as possible, but if you're new to this series, you know how you won't know how this works. But if you've kind of been here before, you'll know how it works. I cannot touch these cars, I cannot change tyres, add performance mods or anything. I need that fresh, out of the box feel, no tuning, and obviously I'll give you my opinion on the car. Well, we know it's a bit of a handful to drive. Obviously, it's to be expected. It's a classic race car, and I believe this thing has, big old drum brakes. So, you've not got any modern, comforts, should I say, that you do on obviously some of the more modern race cars in the game. It is literally bare bones, the way it should have been back then, and trust me, it does kind of feel that way. But don't let that put you off. The feeling of driving this car is definitely the way an old race car should feel. It shouldn't feel like you can just drive around in comfort. You should feel like on edge the whole time. Yes, it's not the fastest thing in the world, but trust me, it doesn't need to be. If this thing had any more speed, it'd be at the point where it's uncontrollable. I obviously drive with no assists on and manual transmission, so it definitely kind of was all down to me to make sure I got everything right. There is no way this car is going to help you. You have to essentially help the car along. Now, some of the more modern race cars in the game, they will basically help you along, even with no assists on. They're an absolute ease to drive. This is the complete opposite, and it's a bit of a nightmare car, but trust me, once you kind of get used to it and get in a rhythm of this car, it's definitely one of the more pure driving experiences in Gran Turismo 7. Now, this car actually falls in a rare category of, cars that I've tested and done buyer's guides for, which is a 500 performance point category. There's only one other car I've tested that sits in that category, and that was the Ford Roadster from the previous update, I believe 1.17 that came along. And again, it was a car that was really sort of overlooked. Nobody really cared it was in the game, but I genuinely enjoyed it, and I said a lot about that car that, it was a great cruising car. If you wanted to kind of just go around the track in a sort of an old school car, get that old school cruising feel, then that was definitely the car for you. This car, on the other hand, feels like a classic race car. It feels on edge, it feels aggressive, it feels like, it wants to throw you in the barrier the whole time, but that's kind of the charm of this thing. I didn't want this to feel like a cruising car, and that was kind of my worry with it. I assumed that this car would be, a little too slow, but it doesn't feel slow at all. Yes, it's not got the output of, some of these more modern race cars. I mean, nowhere close to it. However, for a classic race car, it still feels very, very fast. And that's another plus point to this car. Yes, you may not be going these insane speeds. I believe on the back straight I hit 140 at maximum, but it just felt fast. The sense of speed with this car is definitely there. And, when you're combining these, I guess, speeds with, no traction, no assist, classic driving style, it is just genuinely, like I've said before, a pure racing car feel. This is what I wanted from the car, and it just didn't disappoint. Now, at first I saw this car sort of appear in what people thought it was going to be, which I believe they was pretty much correct on straight away, and then I saw it in the trailer, and I still just didn't give it a second look. I thought, oh, that's a nice looking old car, probably won't use it. However, now we're getting more of these classic cars added into the game. It's kind of giving me ideas to make like classic sports car championships, and this car would just fit right in, sort of in the grid. It may even be the car that I'd use to take on that championship. So, just the more classic cars we get, yes, they may be overlooked by the majority of players, but for, content creators like me that kind of want to get a bit more creative and sort of make these classic sports car championships, from yesteryear, the more the merrier, in my opinion. And this is definitely a car that I hope, over the next few months I can kind of feature more and more. And obviously, if I were to do a classic championship, it'd kind of be a staple of the channel, or a more long-running series, should I say. I did try the Super GT one. Sadly, it's kind of round two's gone a little bit, I guess, south, purely because of not being able to save settings and getting the whole race set up. It took around about, I believe, 8 to 12 hours just to do one video, and it got around about 700 views, so it really just wasn't worth my time. However, now we also have we're able to save custom settings. This kind of makes the whole process a lot easier. It means I can sort of change things up when I want to do, but I can also keep the same cars and such, and the same settings that I want, to be able to just boot them up and get the cars ready. So, it definitely is cars like these that kind of give you inspirations. Like I was, thinking about doing sort of a classic championship where it'd be like cars from like the 1970s up to the late 80s. Now more cars like this are appearing, and it's kind of making me think, well, do I go even earlier? Do I go for world sports car championship cars from like this, the 1950s, all the way up to the Group C monsters, and just kind of have them in a big championship? Yes, it would be weird, and I have to find a way to sort of split categories on my own. Obviously we can't do that in game, but I genuinely think the more classic cars we have in the game, the better, because it sort of gives me a place to kind of let my imagination run wild and come up with these more, I guess, long-winded series that I can kind of get running over, like, let's say 6 rounds. Sound-wise, I think it sounds perfect. It sounds the way a classic race car should. So have a listen to this. Personally, I absolutely love the sound. Some people may hate it or think it just sounds a bit dull. But you know, each to their own. Some people are just absolutely hate classic cars. You know, you see it everywhere where these cars are just really not thought much about. But I just absolutely love them. You know, yes, they're expensive, but you know, if you kind of tune these up and get them how you want them to feel, you can really just get a sense of just pure driving. And that's the main point I want you to take from this video and this buyer's guide. Like, yes, this car isn't the fastest, yes, it's an absolute nightmare for kicking its back end out, but if you want a pure classic driving feel, look no further. So let's talk about the detail of the interior. Now, there isn't much of an interior. Obviously, this is an old car, open top. But personally, I think it looks absolutely great. And one thing that I really did take notice of, because it stood out to me for some reason, is the gearbox. Obviously, if you watch the stick when it comes to changing gear, the driver actually puts it in the gear that you're in. There may only be a couple of it throughout this video, throughout this clip, sorry. But if you just keep an eye on it, you'll see when I change gear, the driver actually gets it in the perfect gear, and it's kind of the perfect car to highlight that, and it's something I've never really sort of took notice to. But again, it just proves that this car is all about the little details, and you know, like I said, that pure driver feeling. It just kind of highlights just how cool and back to basics these old cars really are, and for me, that's a credit not just to Polyphony but to the car itself. So after a full lap, we managed to complete it in 8 minutes 27.754. So actually a very good lap time, considering we've only tested one other car in the 500 performance point bracket. Obviously I knew this car wasn't going to go for a top 20. There's some real quick cars in there. However, I kind of didn't really know where it'd come up. I kind of thought, is it going to be close to that, you know, the Ford Roadster, or is it going to absolutely dominate it? And as you can see, it absolutely dominated the Ford Roadster. So we now have two cars in the 500 pp category. You know, yes, one is, you know, 22 years older. However, nearly a minute's different, but still within that 500 pp bracket. So it just kind of shows you how quickly cars move forward. You know, in 2 decades, you took nearly a minute away from, yes, a car that isn't a race car, but you know, it's pretty cool to kind of see those advancements. So overall, should you buy this car? In my opinion, yeah, because it just gives you a pure sense of, you know, classic racing. And that's all I wanted from this car. You know, I don't care about the price. I can earn money however, you know, that's kind of why I make money, guys. I don't want you guys to be poor or broke when updates come out. So you can afford these kind of cars and sort of, you know, yes, it's a chunk of money, but it's money kind of well spent. I'm going to look into maybe tuning, guys, for this car and see, you know, where it is competitive. You also may see it appear in longer series over the channel, you know, over the course of, who knows, maybe the next year or so. So yeah, keep your eye out for it. Trust me, pick one up if you just want that classic car feeling. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Thank you so much for the support recently, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.